is the story of the last Maharis, women consecrated to dance. And it is a story of how their dance, which was once a part of temple life, became an art of the modern stage. The setting is India's eastern seacoast at the temple of Jagannath, where hundreds of thousands gather each year to celebrate the cart festival, and where the Maharis perform the dance known today as Odissi.
The place is named Puri, which means simply city. The early British knew it as Jagannath, after the deity whose image is carried forth in the cart procession. The legend of pilgrims ending their lives beneath the oncoming wheels of Lord Jagannath's chariot captured the foreign imagination. The word Juggernaut permanently entered the English language, coming to refer to anything huge and unstoppable to which people sacrificed themselves. A British civil servant had this to say about the dance.
I always wondered about what Maharis would be like, because when we talk of dance, Orissa especially, we always talk of these Maharis who danced, and there being the link, the living link between now and what was. This is the dance that was performed daily in the temple of Jagannath, where the Maharis were regarded as brides of the god. The dancer was one of the last to be trained as a Mahari. In the early 1950s, dance in the temple ceased, ending a tradition that went back nearly 1,000 years.
Sanskrit literature called temple dancers Devadasis, women who served God. Mahari was the local word. In the modern period, as royal and religious patronage disappeared, perceptions of the dance changed. The very role for which temple dance had been exalted contributed to its demise.
Today, Odissi is very much alive on the modern stage. Temple dance is a memory of only a few. The older generation of Puri's Devadasis were the caretakers of Odissi. They knew what it was to dance in one of Hinduism's greatest centers of patronage. In 1983, we came to meet them. Haripriya's name means beloved of God. Since her infancy, she has lived in the Mahari household to which her parents gave her in adoption. This was the world in which she was trained to dance and sing. At an early age, she was consecrated to the temple. The clothing of the god was tied round her head, as a groom's might have been in a wedding. She would marry no mortal man. When Haripriya was 25, there were about 50 Maharis in Puri. Of the few who remain today, she is the most senior. माँ मोर माँ बाबा दोनों शास्त्रीय संगीत में हैं, दोनों गाते हैं, सिखाते हैं। तो बचपन से ही मुझे सारा वातावरण था, तो मैंने पहले कथक, भरतनाट्यम, पहले भरतनाट्यम, कथक, फिर उड़ीसी बाद में, बहुत बाद में। पहले गुरुजी के एक शिष्य दिल्ली में, हरिकृष्ण बहरा, उनसे शुरू किया दिल्ली में, फिर गुरुजी से। अभी 12 साल से गुरुजी के पास। 12 साल? हाँ। अच्छा माँ, आप तो मंदिर में नृत्य करती थी, हम अभी स्टेज पे करते, तो आपके मन में हम दोनों में क्या अंतर है, क्या प्रभेद, आपको क्या लगता है?
तुम आम भीतर तफात यही बाहर नाचिबे, स्टेज रे नाचिबे, गोटे विद्या कला। आम गला बेले सेवा करिया गला बेले मंदिर भितर जगन्नाथ जेदिन प्रतिष्ठा हेले, बुझ पारछ, जेदिन प्रतिष्ठा हेले ସ୍ୱର୍ଗରୁ ହାହୁ ଗନ୍ଧର୍ବ ଆଉ ମେନକା ଉର୍ବଶୀ ଆସିଥିଲେ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କର ପ୍ରତିଷ୍ଠା କରିବା ପାଇଁ। ସେଇଦିନଠୁ ଦେବଦାସୀ ପ୍ରଥା ଅଛି ଆଉ ଦେବଦାସୀ ନୃତ୍ୟ ସେଦିନଠୁ ଅଛି। ଦେବଦାସୀ ନୃତ୍ୟ ଗୋଟି ପୁଅ ନୃତ୍ୟ ନୁହେଁ। ପ୍ରଥମ ଦେବଦାସୀ ନୃତ୍ୟ ହଉଛି ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଦେବଦାସୀ କରିଛି ଆଉ କେହି କରିନି। ଯେତେ ଯିଏ କହିଲେ ମୁଁ କହିବି ଯେ ଦେବଦାସୀ ପ୍ରଥମ ମାର୍ଗ ନୃତ୍ୟ କରିଛି। ଆଉ କେହି ନଥିଲା। ନୃତ୍ୟ କଣ କି ଦେଶରେ କି କୋଉ ଦେଶରେ କି ନୃତ୍ୟ ଥିବ, ମଣିପୁରୀ କି କଣ ଆଉ ସବୁ କଣ ଥିବ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଏ ଦେଶରେ ଓଡ଼ିଶୀ ନୃତ୍ୟ ଦେବଦାସୀ କରିଛି ଆରମ୍ଭ।
The Apsaras and Gandharvas are the performers of heaven and mythic counterparts of the Maharis. Temple architecture, like temple practice, is a retelling of myth. The temple spire represents the mountain home of Indra, the god king. Figures, sculpted round the outer walls and doorways, are the musicians and dancers who entertained his court. The ruined Sun Temple at Konark is also ornamented with giant wheels to resemble a chariot, the royal vehicle on which the sun god makes his daily journey through the heavens.
Women dancers were attached to the earliest Indian courts. Around the 2nd century, Bharata, in his Manual of Theatrical Arts, mentions a style of dance particular to Orissa, the region that gives Odissi its name. The dedication of dancers to the temple began several centuries later. By medieval times, the dance pavilion, or Natya Mandapa, had become a regular feature of northern temple architecture. Here at Konark, up the coast from Puri, sculpted figures reveal nearly the full vocabulary of Odissi dance. The basic posture of Odissi is the Tribhanga, where the body bends at knee, torso, and neck. In Odissi, there are two kinds of dance, pure dance and expressive dance. This is pure dance, where each musical phrase ends in a fixed position. One particular to Odissi is the chowk, a squared-off stance like the shape of the Jagannath icon. Sculpture and written text describe formal positions of Odissi, but rhythm and movement come through oral tradition, from teacher to student. My guru comes from a tradition of boy dancers called Gotipur, who took female roles in performances outside the temple. He and other male dancers, not the Maharis, brought Odissi to the modern stage. In this 2-week workshop Guruji holds in his home near Puri, there are students from Bombay, Delhi, Italy, and the United States. But the dance comes out of Orissa, its music, its gesture, and its poetry, like the Gita Govinda, Jayadev's famous love song about Krishna and a village girl named Radha. To understand it, we must go to the temple city, where God's ritual day gave dance its measure.
temple of Jagannath was built by Orissan kings around the 12th century as the devotional cult of Krishna swept eastern India. But worship of this regional god is much older.
Jagannath means Lord of the world. His image has tribal origins. His ritual celebrates the union of spiritual opposites, god and goddess, in the tantric tradition. But he is popularly known as Krishna, the divine lover. We dance to quench Lord Jagannath's desire. Our dance and song, the gestures of our hands, displayed the feeling in our hearts. We danced according to the time, the month, the year and the season. Understand? The most important festival on Puri's ritual calendar comes in July, at the onset of the monsoon rains. All the temple servants take part. The carpenters build the chariots that will carry Jagannath, his brother, and his sister to the world outside the temple. Inside, temple cooks prepare for crowds of as many as 90,000. The food is ritually offered to the god and received by pilgrims as a sacrament. In the inner sanctum, priests look after Jagannath himself, bathing, clothing, and adorning him. There is a saying, Jatha Deha, Tatha Deva. Treat God's image as you do the human body.
ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ମନ୍ଦିରରେ 36 ନିଯୋଗ 36 ପ୍ରକାର ସେବାକାରୀ ଅଛନ୍ତି। ତା ଭିତରୁ ରଜା ଗଜପତି ମହାରାଜା ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ପ୍ରଥମ ସେବକ। ଆଉ ପଣ୍ଡା ପଶୁପାଳକ ଯାହାଙ୍କୁ ସିଙ୍ଗାରୀ କୁହାଯାଏ, ଆଉ ଦଇତା ସ୍ୱାରଗଡ଼ୁ ପତ୍ରୀଗଡ଼ୁ ଗରାଗଡ଼ୁ ଆଉ ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏଇଭଳି ବହୁତ ପ୍ରକାର 36 ନିଯୋଗ ଅଛନ୍ତି। ତା ଭିତରୁ ମାହାରୀ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ନିଯୋଗ। ଆମେ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତିନିଧି ଯେଉଁ ଗଜପତି ମହାରାଜା ତାଙ୍କର ଆମେ ଗୁରୁ। ଆମେ ମନ୍ଦିରରେ ପରୀକ୍ଷା ଅର୍ଥ ପରୀକ୍ଷକ। ସେ ଯେଉଁ ମାହାରୀ ମାନେ ନୃତ୍ୟକାରିଣୀ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରକାର ଅଛନ୍ତି, ଗାଉଣୀ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରକାର ଅଛନ୍ତି। ସେମାନେ ଗାଉଣୀ ମାନେ ବଡ଼ସିଂହାର ସମୟରେ ଗାଆନ୍ତି। ନୃତ୍ୟକାରୀ ମାନେ ସକାଳୁ ଧୂପ ଟେରା ପଡ଼ିଲା ବେଳେ ଆମ ଆଗରେ ନୃତ୍ୟ କରନ୍ତି। ଆମେ ସୁନାବେଶ ଭଣ୍ଡାରରୁ ଆସେ ଆମ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ମାଦଳ ବଜାନ୍ତି, ସେମାନେ ନୃତ୍ୟ କରନ୍ତି। ଠିକ୍ ଟେରା ଯେତେବେଳକୁ ନୈବେଦ୍ୟ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହୁଏ, ମହାପ୍ରଭୁଙ୍କ ଆଡ଼ିକି ଦକ୍ଷିଣ ଭାଗ ରହେ।
Beyond the hall of dance and the assembly hall lies the inner sanctum. This is the worshipper's school, where the divine presence is recognized. Here the food offering was made during the morning ritual. At night, the Maharis sang at the threshold. In Hindu metaphysics, the temple plan represented a microcosm of the world order. Outside the inner sanctum lay the world of nature. The divine presence was male, Purusha. Nature was female, Prakriti. Early thinkers said, nature, or Prakriti, danced for the divine presence. Sasi was one of the group of Maharis who took turns dancing in the morning ritual. On her day to perform, she would fast and bathe, then approach the temple, veiled in a special shawl that was tied round her waist when she danced. Inside the temple, the Mahari performed only pure dance, which had no storyline, but was said to embody the quality of Shringara, or love.
लुचाई च काहे श्याम है आहे श्याम है दियो दियो मुला की साड़ी लीला निधि है नीला निधि है राजे मुगली
Expressive dances called abhinaya that enact the drama of a song were performed for festival occasions, often in the company of other Maharis.
से तार बहुत किसी कारण अच्छी बोली काम अच्छी बोली देवदासी कि तार बहुत कारण रही शाड़ी बंधन बा तार समते आमर छतीसा निजोगो से मानकर सब निमंत्रणता है केते केते टंका भी मध्य खर्च राजा भी मध्य सेटा साड़ी भी मध्य हुकुम देई जगन्नाथंकर साड़ी आसी मुंडरे गुड़ा हेले तेबे जाइकरी सिना ता भीतर जे प्रवेश आ देवदासी हेकरी मध्य भी मध्य आमे भी मध्य खाली भी मध्य बाळुतो बेले मध्य कन्या बाळुतो कन्या बाळो कन्या हेकरी मध्य हम ता करी नाहु
Kokila lives behind the temple in a lane once set aside for Maharis. When she was young, the king was fond of her singing. He nicknamed her Koili, after a bird with a beautiful voice.
पिला हेतिली माने मो ना कोइली प्रकृत मोर कोइली गला थिला इन त 63 वर्ष हेलानी मोर तो बुढ़ा सुआ मोर कोठी आउ कोन से गला अछि ना से दिन अछि सेतबले हमर मां माने भौणी माने बड़ 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 भौणी माने सब से माने सब बोलंती से सब हमको सिखांती भी से माने भी बोलुछंती ताकुर भी हम अनुकरण करिगिरी बोले आपे आपे ही जाए अपन से साथ जन्म हिचु आ से बोले आपे आपे ही जीव बोले लेखा लेखी विषय ने किरी जा स्कूल रे कम झियो माने से पाठ पढ़ाते सेते बोलते एते पढ़ा नसला जाई किरी स्कूल एते अक्षर परिचय भागवत गीत गोविंदी गोपी भाषा यही सब पढ़ला होला बेसी किछि पाठ पढ़िनु मिछ कथा काई कहबो बुझो आ ये भी आजिकल जा हलानी से सब हम पाठ पढ़िनु किछि मो तो 9 वर्ष दिन सेवा करी आसी किंतु सेगुरा सब बंद मोर से बड़सिंगार सेवाटा ही हला मूल बड़सिंगार सेवाटा को आज पर्यंत करी आछे जगन्नाथ को राखुची से द्वार को गला पर्यंत ता द्वार सा बंद न करू तेने के भाग्य रे कोन अछि कहि पानी
Kokila goes to the temple every night, wearing the special shawl she received at her initiation. Cameras and recording equipment are not allowed inside the temple. Kokila sang these verses for us before she went in to perform. They are from Jayadev's Gita Govinda, which the Maharis say he composed out of his love for a Devadasi of Puri.
हार मोदार सामन ते क्रोश तनोरी विभार राधिका तब विरोहे केशव राधिका सरसमासुण मपि मलय जपंकु पश्यति विषमेव वपुषि ससंग
people attended the cart festival in 1983. For centuries, rulers in Orissa levied taxes on the pilgrims. When the British began to collect the tax in the 1800s, it created controversy in English Parliament. Stories circulated about people sacrificing themselves to the oncoming Juggernaut. The story stuck, although official records show that more pilgrims lost their lives in mishaps at the tax gates than sought liberation beneath the chariot wheels of the god.
Jagannath leaves the inner sanctum for the world outside the temple only during the cart festival. The image weighs more than half a ton. It is refashioned from a single block of wood every 12th year by non-Brahmin priests who can touch the deity because people say they are the tribal relatives of Jagannath. The image is rocked forward on its rounded base, a motion imitated in Odissi dance.
The greatest ritual day of the cart festival is the first. Jagannath, his sister Subhadra, and brother Balabhadra emerge from the temple. The king makes a ceremonial appearance, and finally, the carts are drawn down a long avenue through the heart of Puri to a smaller shrine where they will stay for 7 days.
The Maharis were the female players in Puri's pageants. They took on various roles of women close to Jagannath during the course of the ritual year. Kokila told us, pilgrims came from the west and east to see us. They worshipped us. They washed our feet and took the water home like Ganges water.
With the temple spire at its center, the city Puri was made to mirror the mountain home of the gods. The way the Devadasi was understood reflected a significance attached to women in daily life, even as her role as dancer set her apart.
Not far from Puri is a shrine to the goddess, contemporary with the beginnings of temple dance in Orissa. It honored the many aspects of Shakti, the divine female power, according to the Tantric tradition. Its circular form is almost a reversal of the conventional temple. Here the sanctum surrounds the worshipper. The figures sculpted round the walls are themselves the divine presence. In the language of the priests, Rajguru explains how the invocation of Shakti figured in the ritual of Jagannath Temple.
ଶିବଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଶକ୍ତି ଯୋଗ ନ ହେବେ ତାହେଲେ ସେ ଶବ ହେଇଯିବେ। ଇକାରଟି ଶକ୍ତି ରୂପରେ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଗ ଥାଏ, ତେଣୁ କେଉଁଠି ପାର୍ବତୀ ରୂପରେ, କେଉଁଠି ଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀ ରୂପରେ, କେଉଁଠି ଯୋଉ ରୂପରେ ହଉ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ କି ଶକ୍ତି ରୂପରେ ଗ୍ରହଣ କରାଯାଇଛି। ସବୁ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ, ସବୁ ମଙ୍ଗଳ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟରେ ଏବଂ ପୂଜାପୂଜି କର୍ମରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଶକ୍ତିର ସଂଯୋଗ ବରାବର ଥାଏ। କୋଉଠି କୋଉ ରୂପରେ ସଂଯୋଗ ଥାଏ, ଯାହା ହଉ କିନ୍ତୁ ସଂଯୋଗ ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ଥାଏ। ତେଣୁ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ସେବାରେ ସେଇଭଳି ଭାବରେ କୌଣସି ରୂପରେ ଶକ୍ତିଙ୍କର ସଂଯୋଗ ଅଛି, ନୃତ୍ୟ ରୂପରେ ହଉ, ଗାନ ରୂପରେ ହଉ ସଂଯୋଗ ଅଛି। ସେହି ନୃତ୍ୟ ଦ୍ୱାରା ମହାପ୍ରସାଦ ବଡ଼ ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣାଙ୍ଗ ଲାଭ କରେ। ତେଣୁ ସେହି ନୃତ୍ୟଟି ସେତେବେଳେ ବଡ଼ ପ୍ରଶସ୍ତ।
Just as the Devadasi was needed to secure the success of temple ritual, women generally were seen to have an auspicious influence.
Some say that to see a woman who wears red powder in her hair bangles, and jewelry at the start of a journey promises a fruitful outcome. These are the marks of a bride, the signs of good fortune. The Devadasis also wear them. A housewife's horoscope may say she will be widowed, but when her husband dies, she breaks all her bangles. We never face that situation. Lakshmi and Jagannath are always united. A housewife is attached to her family. God has given us a different life.
As the bride of God, the Mahari was considered an auspicious sign. She danced facing the temple entrance, like the sculpted dancers that ornament temple walls and doorways. Homes are decorated similarly. Female figures and other emblems are painted by the threshold at the time of a marriage or sacred thread ceremony. When families of temple priests or the king celebrated these occasions, the Maharis themselves were called in to sing. A folk painting tells of a sage who parches the land with the heat of his meditation. Dancing women break his power, bringing rain to the countryside.
The Devadasi, like the ascetic, was set aside from family life by the religious order that governed society. But while the ascetic burned his caste thread to renounce the endless round of rebirths, the Devadasi was adorned in bangles and silks, affirming the passage of time, the rhythm of life. Normally in Orissa, wives and daughters would not have danced in public. The Mahari danced inside the temple, but was compared to the palace courtesan. Both practiced the legendary arts of the Apsaras and Gandharvas, the performance of dance and music.
आघिरे एते भक्ति थिला जगन्नाथ को प्रति से देवदासी बड़सिंगार करिया को जाए किंतु से पलंक तले शुए राति रे बाहर को बाहरी बनी से पलंक तले शोइबो बाहर जो मुझ देकी सेते बेले सत्य जगन्नाथ थिले भी सत्य देवदासी भी थिला समस्त सत्य रे चलुथिले राजा भी थिले सत्य रे सेमती रे सोथिले से बहुत घटना किंतु आमर प्रकृत होची नियम अरख फूल लगेबू मुंडरे जट काय वस्त्र पिंधिबू आमर देवदासी ये होची नीति से राति रे सिटी आमे सोथुलु माने परंपरा रे मु खाली सुनिबा कथा ना मु देखिछि ना जानिछि सोथुलु पलंक तले सकाळ माने सत्य परिश्रा पोखरी सब बंद होतला सकाळ उठिकिरी द्वार मंगला आरती बेले द्वार फिटिबो देवदासी ता भितरु बाहरिबो से कोन करछि छोट छोट झियो गंटे छटी पाली थिला से सेवा सकासे पाली थिला से दिन तार खाइबा को नाही ये दासी गला भरी जगन्नाथ पाखु को बड़सिंगार को गला जेकला महाप्रभु तम श्रीमुख को देखिक मु आवश्यक रही जीवी सही जीवी किंतु से पुंजे पांच पिला मोर भोक उपास नले तो इच्छा जा करछ करे या कि तार से सेठो करी देले तापरे भोग हला से थाईटा को बिक्री करी गहना पत्र से टंका को देले दासी की दासी कहला मु टंका ने के महाप्रभु कौन करी काय वस्त्र पिंधिबी अर्ख फूल लगेबी मोटा बगड़ा खाइबी मु एते टंका ने कौन करी ना जा तो मनुष्य जीवन तो पाइचु तोर तो गहना पत्र करी पिंधा जदि गहना पत्र करी पिंधिबी ताले मत समस्त अनेबे ना जदि अनेबे ताले जा तोर सेवक तोर अंग छुईबे ना जदि सेवक अंग छुईबे किंतु आ जगन्नाथ पलंक तले आज तू शोइबे सेवा करी देबे पळी ये गोटे बड़ गुड़ रहस्य
The Maharis could not have conventional arranged marriages. They called their relationships Gandharva marriages, after those of heaven's performers, and compared them to the union of the Mahari and the poet Jayadeva. Today, the phrase is used widely to mean love marriage.
बाप नुहे जो माने भी संपृक्त होती ସେମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ଗୃହସ୍ଥାଶ୍ରମ ଏମିତି ଥାଇକିରି ଯେ ସେ ସମ୍ପୃକ୍ତ ହୁଅନ୍ତି ତା ବି ମଧ୍ୟ ନୁହଁ, ସେ ଆସନ୍ତି। ରାଜା ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଅନୁମତି ଦିଅନ୍ତି, କ୍ୱଚିତ ଅନୁମତି ଦିଅନ୍ତି, ସେ ବି ମଧ୍ୟ ସବୁବେଳେ ନୁହେଁ। ସେଇ ରୂପରେ ସେମାନେ ଇଏ କରନ୍ତି, ସେମାନଙ୍କର ସନ୍ତାନ ସନ୍ତତି ଖୁବ୍ କ୍ୱଚିତ ହୁଅନ୍ତି, ଯଦି ହୁଅନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଝିଅ ହେଲେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଝିଅ ରୂପରେ ତ ତାଙ୍କର ପରିବାର ରୂପରେ ଗ୍ରହଣ କରନ୍ତି, ଆଉ ପୁଅ ହେଲେ ସେମାନେ ସବୁ ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ଜାତିରେ ଚଳିଯାଆନ୍ତି, କେବଳ ମାନେ ଭଲ ଜାତି ଭିତରେ ସେମାନେ ବି ଚଳିଯାଆନ୍ତି। ଆଉ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ସମାଜ ଭିତରେ ଅବଶ୍ୟ ଖୁବ୍ ସମ୍ମାନ ଦିଆଯାଇଥାଏ, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ସମାଜ ଭିତରେ ସେମିତି ଚଳନ୍ତିନି।
ଆମେ ରହିଲୁ ବୋଲିକି ଆମ ମନ ଜାଣିଲା, ଆମ ତତ୍ତ୍ୱ ଜାଣିଲା, ଭଗବାନ ଜାଣିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ସଂସାର ଖେଳନୀୟରେ ସେ ତାକୁ ବହୁତ କିଛି ବିପରୀତ ମଧ୍ୟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ସମସ୍ତେ କିଛି କରିପାରୁନାହାନ୍ତି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଯାହାକୁ ଯୋଉ ବେଳି ଜନ୍ମ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଭଗବାନ, ସେ ସେଇପରି ଆକାରରେ ଦେଖିପାରୁଛି। ଓ ଦେବଦାସୀ, ଓ ଅମୁକ ଢମୁକ। ତେଣୁ ଆମକୁ ଗୋଟେ କିଞ୍ଚିତ ଭାବ ରହିଲା, ହଉ ଭଗବାନ କଣ ତୁମେ ଜନ୍ମ ଦେଲ, ଆମେ କିଛି ବି ଜାଣିପାରୁନୁ, କିଛି ବି ବୁଝିପାରୁନୁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ୟା ବି ମଧ୍ୟ ସଂସାର କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଅଣଭକ୍ତି ରହିଛି, ତା ଭିତରେ କିଛି ବୁଝିପାରୁନି ଲୋକ। ତେଣୁ ସଂସାର ମତକୁ କାହିଁକି ଆଉ ଇଚ୍ଛା କରିବାକୁ ଆମର ପଡ଼ିବ? ଯିଏ ପ୍ରକୃତ କଥା ଯଦିଓ ଭକ୍ତମୟରେ ଯଦି ରହିଥିବ, ସେ ସଂସାରମୟରେ କିଛି ଇଚ୍ଛା କରିବାକୁ ଦରକାର କରୁନି, ସଂସାର ସାଙ୍ଗରେ କିଛି ସମ୍ପର୍କ ନାହିଁ। ସଂସାରଟା କେତେବେଳେ ଲୋକଟାକୁ ଭଲ ବୁଝିଲାଣି, କେତେବେଳେ ଭୁଲ ବୁଝିଲାଣି, କେତେବେଳେ ଠିକ ବୁଝିଲାଣି।
The King of Puri's presence is essential before the court festival procession can begin, even though his political authority is gone. He is spoken of as the moving form of God. He acts in his ritual role only on this occasion.
When the king went out to the chariots, we accompanied him. We made the sound hula huli to herald him. And when he returned, we sang a special song. Grit for the court festival is finished. Accompanied by the Rajgurus, the king mounts Jagannath's chariot to greet the god and sweep his surroundings clean. By sweeping, the king ceremonially performs the lowliest act of Indian life in submission to the god. The Jagannath Temple was built by an Orissan king. It was the imperial temple of the Gajapati, or elephant line of kings. In 1963, after 8 years of litigation, the Orissa state government took control of temple management and lands from the royal family. The current heir lives outside Puri and has taken up the study of constitutional law professionally.
The world of the royal court, which had so deeply influenced Indian religious expression, began a slow and irreversible decline under British authority. Following national independence in 1947, it drew to a final close.
Pilgrims still come to India's eastern seacoast to attend the pageant of god and king, although the Maharis no longer adorn Lord Jagannath's court. The Devadasi had been set aside as bride of the god to dance and sing the country's love songs, but without the backing of temple and court, she was set adrift. In a new society, where her legitimacy was challenged. The practice of dedicating women to the temple came under legal attack in the south. when abuses of the system were brought to light by Indian reformers. In Puri, there was no formal opposition to temple dance, but the Maharis were affected by the general climate of disfavor, and the intellectual movement to put dance in a modern context was slow to reach Orissa.
ରାଜାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରଭାବ କମିଗଲା ରାଜାଙ୍କ ପ୍ରଭାବ କମିଯିବାରୁ ତାପରେ ପରେ ଆଉ କୌଣସି ଆଦର ରହିଲାନି ତାପରେ ଧର୍ମ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ ବି କ୍ରମେ କ୍ରମେ ଲୋକଙ୍କର କମିଗଲା କମିଯିବାକୁ ଦ୍ୱାରା ସେଇ ଜିନିଷଟାକୁ ବେଶୀ ଦୃଷ୍ଟି ଦେଲେନି ଲୋକ ଆଉ ତେବେ ସେଗୁଡ଼ାକ କାଳକ୍ରମରେ କମି ଆସିଛି ବେଶୀ ଦିନ ନୁହେଁ ମୋରି ଅନୁଭବ ଭିତରେ ମୁଁ ଯାହା ଦେଖି ଦେଖି ଆସିଛି ବୋଧ ହୁଏ ଏ 25-30 ବର୍ଷ ଭିତରର ଘଟଣା ୟା ଭିତରେ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଛି ଆଉ ବନ୍ଦ କିଛି ହେବାର କୌଣସି କାରଣ ନାହିଁ କି କେହି ବନ୍ଦ କରିନାହାନ୍ତି ଏପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ବି କୌଣସି ନିଷେଧ ଆଦେଶ ତା ଉପରେ ହେଇନି
When dance in the temple stopped, Sparsamani was a young woman. Now, she rents out rooms in the house she inherited from her adopted Devadasi mother. In the past, the king's patronage was the foundation of the Maharis' support. Rights to housing and land came by royal decree. The Maharis also received offerings from pilgrims and a daily portion of the temple food. This support died out with the dance, and retired Devadasis received no pensions from the new authorities until quite recently.
सेवाରୁ କିଛି ମିଳୁନି କାହିଁ ସେବା କରି ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକ ସେବା କରୁଛି ତାକୁ ଏବେ କ'ଣ ସରକାର ପଇସା ଦେଉଛନ୍ତି ସେତେବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କର କ'ଣ ଖେଇ ଥିଲା ଖେଇ ଏ ପିଠା ଖେଇ ଥିଲା ସେ ଖେଇଟାକୁ ଜଣେ ନେଇକି ରଖେ ରଖିକିରି ସେ ସବୁଦିନ ଖେଇ ସବୁଦିନ ବିକି 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 ବର୍ଷକୁ ସେ ଖେଇଟାକ ପଇସା ପତ୍ର ଏକାଠି କରେ ତାକୁ ଆଣି ଦିଏ ଦେଇକି ସେଇଟା ଯେତେ ଜଣ ଥାଆନ୍ତି ସେବା କରିବାକୁ ନାଚ ସେବା ପହୁଡ଼ ସେବା କରିବାକୁ ଯେତେ ଲୋକ ଥାଆନ୍ତି ସେ ସେଇଟାକୁ ବାଣ୍ଟିକି ନିଅନ୍ତି କିଏ 20 ପାଇବ କି 30 ପାଇବ କି 25 ପାଇବ କି 50 ପାଇବ କି 100 ପାଇବ କି 150 ପାଇବ ଏଥିରେ ତ ଚଳି ହେବନି ଚଳି ହେବ କି ସେବାରୁ କ'ଣ ମିଳିବ
Sparsamani adds to her rental income by teaching dance and song. Her total earnings are small, around 100 rupees a month.
ସମାନ ଏମିତି ରଖୁନ ଏଇ ତ ଏ ହାରମୋନ ମୋ ମାଆଙ୍କର ମୁଁ ଏଇଠି ବସିକିରି ହାରମୋନ ଶିଖିକିରି ଗୀତ ଗାଉଛି
One of the young schoolgirls adopts the posture of Krishna holding the flute. They will present their dance drama on the same stage that launched modern Odissi.
The Annapurna Theatre, where Sparsamani's dress rehearsal is taking place, was built by a local opera company in the 1930s. Picture frame stages went up throughout India before the spread of cinema. They were modeled on those used by traveling British Shakespearean companies and Farsi theatre troupes, blending traditional performance styles with new forms of entertainment.
A Mahari danced at the Annapurna in the 1930s, but because she had performed for the public outside the temple, her ties to Jagannath were cut. No other Maharis danced here, but traditional male dancers did. Social attitudes towards dance allowed males to enter the new setting of the Annapurna more easily. Among the young men who performed here were some who became the principal dance gurus of Odissi. Pankacharan Das first performed on the Annapurna stage in 1946. He was the son of a Mahari, but did not join the temple as a drummer, as was customary. Later, he became the senior dance instructor at the Orissa State Music Academy. Deva Prasad Das also became a teacher at the academy. And my guru, who has had a distinguished performing career, began here as well. One of his early pupils, Sanjukta Panigrahi, remembers.
My parents were visiting Annapurna Theatre regularly, and they saw Guruji there. Guruji was performing there regularly, conducting dance items, and he was a great actor also. He was a great comic actor. So then my mother asked somebody about Guruji, and they introduced my mother to Guruji, and she brought Guruji home, because at that time actually nobody was learning dance or music, because nobody from good families was supposed to learn dance or music. We have a saying that Salloja gaye, nilloja baye, ati behiya nachiya jaye. The people who have little shame, they sing Salloja gaye, nilloja baye. The people who are shameless, they play instruments, and people who are totally shameless, they go for dancing. That was the saying in those days.
तो मेरे अपना बचपने से ही क्या क्या मैं करके आया और कैसे जाके फिर अपना गुरुकुल में सीखे, ये मैं बोल रहा कि हमने जब 5 साल हो गए थे मेरी उम्र 5, तो इस समय मेरे ज्ञान में आया है। अभी तक मेरी याद है कि मैं गांव में खेल रहा था और मेरे ये सब चुटी था, सब ये सब चुटी था। मैं इसको ये गंजा नहीं बने थे। तो इस समय में मैं खेल रहा था, कूद रहा था और नाच रहे थे। तो हमारी गांव में 2 गोटीपो दल था। ये गोटीपो दल मतलब है कि लड़का लड़की बन के नृत्य करना, समझे?
Gotipur troops danced for the public outside the temple. Although it tended to be more dramatic, Gotipur dance was akin to Mahari dance. In Puri, the dancers were members of a common performance community. Gotipur masters visited the Maharis during dance practice, and the Maharis in turn learned from them. This tradition is said to have begun 3 or 4 centuries ago, when the temple of Jagannath was coming under Muslim and Maratha attack. The king of Puri set up gymnasia to train young men to fight, and for the soldiers' entertainment, these gyms sponsored male dance troops. Today, village landlords sponsor the troops.
बच्चा तो था, मेरे माँ ने सोचा है कि नाच करने के लिए बहुत प्यारा है इसको। फिर इसके बाद मैंने छुप छुप के जाके अपनी जो गोटीपो दल चल रहा था, उनके पास मेहनत करे वो नाच भी सीखे इनके पास, लेकिन पिताजी को मालूम नहीं था। कुछ 3 साल के बाद हमारे गुरुजी बोले मेरे माताजी को कि देखो इसको नाक कान छेद करना है, गहना पहनना है, लड़की बनना है, बाल छोड़ना है और इसको जल्दी से नाक फुड़ा दो। तो मेरे माताजी बहुत डरे, बोले कि इसका पिताजी को जब मालूम हो जाएगा तब तो नाराज हो जाएंगे। तो एक दिन हुआ ऐसा ही कि हमको नाक कान छेद माताजी ने करा दिया। तो पिताजी जब देखे बोले कि ये क्या है, इसे क्यों किया है मेरे बेटे को? बोले कि नहीं ऐसा ही, वो ऐसा ही था, हमारी छोटा भाई, इनके छोटे भाई इसके बड़े भाई मर गए, इसके लिए इसको नाक छेद किया था। तो फिर मेरे गुरुजी आके जब पिताजी को बोले कि तुम्हारी बेटा हमारी जो दशहरा जो देवी पूजा होता है इसमें नृत्य करेंगे। बोले कि कौन सा नृत्य करेंगे? ओडिसी डांस जो कमर हिलाएंगे, गर्दनें हिलाएंगे। हमको नचाया नहीं, वो बहुत गुस्सा होगी। बोले नहीं नहीं, इसका भाव और सत्य के भाव से जैसे नृत्य करेंगे हम दूसरा गुरु के पास छोड़ेंगे। और गुस्से करके फिर जाके मेरे गुरुजी मोहन सुंदर देव गोस्वामी मेरे गुरुजी बैठे हैं, इन्हीं के पास जाके मुझे छोड़ दिए और वहाँ से खूब सुंदर भाव पूर्ण अभिनय, जो अभिनय मैं आज कर रहा हूँ बच्चे लोग को वही सत्य को भाव बता रहा हूँ कि अभिनय में ये गुण है, ये रस है। तो इसी प्रकार की मैं यही नृत्य में आए और रंगमंच में आके फिर अभी हमारी देश विदेश में सारी लड़कियों को मैं वही नृत्य सिखा रहा हूँ, गोटीपुर नृत्य।
The dancer is part of our Guru's artistic family. We learn by imitation, as he learned from his Guru. The vocabulary of Odissi today draws upon the language of dance found in sculpture. Jayadev's ancient love song is still the heart of our Abhinaya, or expressive dance. But within what may seem a fixed repertoire, Odissi has gathered the genius of dancers through time. Each Guru imparts his own vision. Perhaps one of the reasons they give themselves to dance is the simple ecstasy of movement. Neither Haripriya, Sasi, nor Kokila became gurus of the classical art. Younger Maharis left the dance. Kokila's daughter was working as a nurse when she danced for the archival record. Odissi was reconstructed by dance gurus and scholars, combining elements of Mahari and Gotipur dance with material drawn from sculpture and text. A conference in Madras in 1957 and a 1958 seminar in New Delhi stamped it as a regional style of national importance. Now it is one of India's best-known classical styles. You know, the beauty of our classical arts, music and dance is that it is not, it is contemporary, yet it has evolved over so many centuries, Odissi, for example, over 2000 years. And today, for our Abhinaya aspect, Geeta Govind is very, very important, and the Jagannath cult and Maharis are so closely linked with it. So when we dance today, all that power of their devotion and that strong cult is certainly there, I feel.
ये महारी नृत्य खाली गोटे नृत्य बोली कहीदे चल जीवनी केते गुड़ी तात्विक कथा थाई से नृत्य होता है से मुद्रा दर्शन आउ अभिनय ये सब ନିଶ୍ଚୟ ତାଙ୍କର ପୂଜା ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ସମ୍ପୃକ୍ତ ଥିଲା ଭଳି ଜିନିଷ ସେଗୁଡ଼ା ସବୁ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଗଲା। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା। ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇବା ଫଳରେ ତାର ଗୋଟେ ଅଙ୍ଗ ହାନି ହେଇଗଲା। ତେଣୁ ଗୋଟେ ଅଙ୍ଗ ହାନି ହେଇଗଲେ ଆମର ଶାସ୍ତ୍ରମାନଙ୍କରେ ମନା କରାଯାଇଛି ଗୋଟେ ଅଙ୍ଗ ହାନି ହେଇକି ଯଦି କର୍ମ କରାଯାଏ ସେ ଫଳ ଦେବନି।
ମନ ଦୁଃଖ ହୁଏ। କେବଳ କ'ଣ କରିବୁ? ଲୋକକୃତ୍ୟ ବନ୍ଦ। ଇଏ ତ ଜଣିକିଆ ସେବା କିଛି ନୁହଁ। ଆଉ ଆମେ ଜଣେ ନେଇକି ରବା କ'ଣ କରିବୁ? କେମିତି ତାକୁ ନେଇ ଆଣିକିରି ଥୋଇବୁ? 5 ଜଣର ଶବ୍ଦଟା ଯେତେ ଉଠିବ କି ଜଣେ ଶବ୍ଦରେ ସେତେ ଉଠିବ। ଗୀତ ବା ମଙ୍ଗଳ କୃତ୍ୟ ଯାହା କିଛି କଲେ ସେଇଟା ଅସୁନ୍ଦର।
In the 8th part of the Gita Govinda, Jayadeva writes a poem of broken faith. After spending the night with another, Lord Krishna has come to beg Radha's forgiveness. The lines speak of Radha's anger, her pain, and her love.
After struggling through the night, she seemed wasted by the arrows of love. She denounced her lover bitterly as he bowed before her.
वहति नयनम् अनुरागमिव स्फुटा मुदिता रसाभिनिवेशम् हरि 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 याहि माधव याहि केशव मावत कैतव मादं मावत कैतव मादं वसनम् अरुणं तव याही माधव याही केशव मावद कैतव मादं मावद कैतव मादं तामनुसर करसिरुहलोचन यातव हरति विषादं मावद कैतव